Well, we're back to Friday night,
We're back to Friday night,
and
and
we're
we're
back to
almost
you
on.
being somewhere else.
Exactly. Well, that's a pretty normal thing.
Oh,
And we're about 10 minutes late, so that's also normal. Yeah. So I'm in Southern California or Central Coast. So
yeah, that's not Southern California, is
yeah.
it? It's
Well, I don't know where the delineation is. They call it Central Coast, but
okay.
it's not really Central Coast either because it's
Yeah, yeah.
I kind of think the Central is like San Francisco, but so yeah, we're at Morro Bay
Yeah.
and getting ready for 70.3 Morro Bay. I'm not racing, just here coaching and cheering. So yeah, it's awesome. We left this morning around 8 o'clock. We left Las Vegas, and I think it was 82 degrees. It is 52 degrees
Oh,
outside.
I love it. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, and it's going to be a cold race. And
Yeah,
I raced here last year, and it was really cold. It rained almost the entire bike ride,
that's right.
and the water itself was. I think we were lucky. It was 56, 57.
Was that a race that has had the swim canceled because of fog, or was that
Last year was its first year.
okay, okay, last year's first year. Okay, then it was a different race that was the fog
So
issue.
there is a marine layer every morning here that
Mm-hmm.
comes in, and I mean it was foggy when we swam last year, but you could definitely see it. The one of the main issues here is they start super early because
Mm.
and I think it's because we race on the highway on Highway 1 and it's still open to traffic.
Okay.
So the race start at 6 a.m. for age groupers.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really early. So it's
When sunrise?
at 5:40 maybe
Oh,
5:40.
okay, okay, okay.
So it's pretty close to right to sunrise, but you don't see the sun because
Yeah.
you have the marine layer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like it's a difficult swim because the water is number one, it's really cold, but the everything's gray.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
The water itself is so black you can't see your hand like
Oh
2 inches
boy.
in front of it.
Yeah, yeah,
And then you look up and it's just gray,
yeah.
right? Because it's this, how it is. There's not much light. Um, but they're going to be relatively, unlucky with the water temperature.
Mm.
The bay's water temperature really fluctuates. If it's low tide or the tide is going out, it's warmer.
Uh, Interesting. Okay,
They're getting the tide coming in.
okay. So
Uh,
bringing in the cold water. Okay.
so there's been talk at around 52 to 53 degrees.
Ooh, that's cold. Anything, under 60 is cold. Under 55, that is you need some thermal protection when it's under 55. Now I should know this given the research we do. What's the cutoff temperature for uh,
There there isn't an official cutoff temperature for Ironman. There is not.
USAT has one.
USAT does, and the ITU has one.
Yeah.
I remember at St. George, we were a couple of years ago, and there's the October race. We were really close to where the ITU numbers were,
Yep.
and it was a combination of air temperature and water temperature.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the air temperature is not really warm here either.
Yeah.
You get out of the water, and it's about 50 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
So not only are you cold in the water, you're cold getting out. And so there's a few people I've consulted with on this race, and I'm coaching. We talked about specifically about when you get out of the water, about actually toweling off.
Mm-hmm.
Like get your wetsuit off,
Yeah.
take a towel, take the time. This is actually a critical thing when a really cold race like this is you take the time, and I know you've done really cold races where you actually see if you can dry off a little bit,
Yeah.
put arm warmers on, put gloves on,
Great.
because you're 2.5 hours on the bike. If you're frozen,
Yeah.
you may never get your power up.
That's right.
Oh,
That's a tough way to start the day.
yeah, and I've actually, I've done this, and you probably have too. I mean, people I've coached even when they're really, really cold, they just can't push the watts.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
Mm-hmm.
particularly if you're shivering, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about like riding a bike and trying to balance and stay cognitively aware. If you're
Mm-hmm.
shivering, it's not a good it's not a good place to be.
Mm.
So yeah, definitely take the time in T1. Even if you give up a minute or two by drying off and getting some clothes on,
Yeah.
you're gonna be way better off.
Right. Well, I love it. And choosing the right gear for the bike is so important. And I mean, these are times where you even think about a layer that you have to keep the wind off you.
Yep.
So some type of nylon type of jacket. I
I'm
think,
even a fan of the plastic bag down
yeah,
the tracksuit.
yeah,
And then if you get too hot, you can take it off and put it in your pocket.
yeah,
Or, till you get to the next aid station, then you can discard it. I also think, and you can swim with it, right?
yeah.
You can swim with it in there. You don't even notice it's in there. That's another kind of pro tip
Hmm.
uh, that I know a lot of pros do, and I think that's a good idea as well.
I also use tube socks with the toes cut off or slit so that I still can use my fingers. And I throw those on because, you pay $3 for tube socks, and I don't feel bad if I have to throw them away at an aid station.
Yeah.
My wife would also use dishwasher gloves. I know, odd,
Yep.
because of the rubber nature of them, and she was able to keep her hands warm because she has Reynolds disease, and
Yep.
any cold in the extremities can really be a problem. And you gave her a great tip. I don't know if you remember, but
Yeah,
you,
I know. But don't tell everybody my great tip here.
oh yeah,
You can tell. You can tell. It's
this
okay.
one's a good one. That you would take the hand those chemical hot packs, whatever, and tape them on the end of your tri bars, which it was a brilliant idea. And then she extended that out. She would put them in the shoes, she'd put them in the gloves, and try to stay as warm as possible because it makes for a long day if you really can't get started well on the bike.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so true. Yeah. Uh, like I said, you can definitely have a decrease in power, 40, 50 watts
Yeah.
potentially if you're bring.
Oh. So what is the bike course like?
So
Flat, hilly?
the bike course is actually really it's pretty fun. And I've ridden the road many, many times because I've come out here and trained
Mhm.
lots of times. So it's rolling, but there's not much to it, to be
Okay.
honest with you. It's on the Pacific Coast Highway. Basically, you go out 28 miles, turn around, and come back, all on
Cool.
the highway. The bad part is it's open to traffic, and the bike lane actually there's a rumble strip between the bike
Mm,
lane and the highway, and so to pass people, sometimes you have to go over the rumble strip,
okay.
and there's sections where the bike lane part actually kind of gets narrow,
Mm,
so it's only like wide enough for one
hmm.
bike. The good news is once again it starts so early that there's not a lot of traffic on the road. I think last year in the 56 miles, I'm maybe 10 cars past
Mm,
me.
okay.
So it's not like not like a lot, but you got to pay attention. Like if you're gonna
Yeah.
pass them, you have to watch out for the cars.
Yeah. A lot
Um,
of shoulder checking and then bunny hopping over the rumble strips.
exactly. Now there's a few traffic lights on the route, and those are manned by police. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
those are closed.
Hmm.
Um, but it is something that we don't deal with a lot in most of the 70.3s that we race.
Right.
Where there actually is traffic on the potential for traffic on the course. So you got to watch out for that. The other thing that's really interesting when you know this, like when you race along the ocean, there's always a prevailing wind.
Hmm.
There's never a still day
Right.
on the ocean, and it's really predictable here, especially this time of year. It's almost always a north wind that picks up.
Okay.
So for me last year, it was crazy. I mean, I had barely any wind when we started. Um, I probably averaged like 22 miles an hour going north into maybe a 4 or 5 mile an hour headwind.
Hmm.
And then we turned around, the wind just picked up.
Oh boy.
I was doing 30 miles an hour on the way back.
Oh.
And the miles, John, they're just ticking.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're just
Yeah.
ticking off. I ended up with I think a 218 or 219 bike split. Just because the wind was so good, like so
It just
favorable.
timed it right.
But if people, and it happens every day here, the wind picks up like
Yeah.
around 8, 9 in the morning, the wind picks
Hmm.
up and it slowly picks up throughout the entire day to the point where the afternoon on Sunday, the afternoon, this thing is supposed to be like almost 20 miles an hour,
Oh boy.
right?
Okay.
But so if you get out early
Yeah.
and you make the turn, you have a big advantage. Now, if you're a little slower, you have more headwind going out, but you get more tailwind coming back
Yeah.
too.
Right. 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 Oh boy.
So,
Yeah.
so
So you got to time it just right.
there's really fast bike splits here.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a downriver swim.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Just the way that they have it run.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's a good feeling, when the back half of your bike course you have a tailwind,
yeah,
it's just a good feeling, right? Like,
yeah, that's right. Right.
it's a pretty rare thing. I remember they used to run that. This is kind of getting a little deep, but I don't think you ever did it when they ran it in Calgary. They ran it an out and back, but it was the opposite. In Calgary, we always have a west wind,
Okay.
and you run out it was out and back on a highway, and it was half with the first half with the tailwind, then you had to turn around into the headwind.
No, that's no fun.
And the wind would get, the wind gets higher throughout the day. And I'm like,
Yeah,
I never signed up for the race when it was that
yeah, that
course. 'Cause
course.
I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't want any part of that. And the bike splits were always,
Yeah.
like 240s and 250s. And
Oh,
I want nothing to do with
yeah. Oh, that's funny.
that.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
get that down at our Boulder Beach course down here. A lot of times you get that wind that's pushing people out on the out part and then turning around and then you have to have that headwind coming back. And that's always a little painful doing that.
absolutely. Absolutely. So but the bike itself, I mean, the road's good other than the rumble
Hmm.
strips. They clean it before. It's not normally a very clean road because
Okay.
it's kind of
Yeah.
highway, but they
It's
clean it the day before, and so it's
right. Right.
clean. And there's a few little rollers, which is nice because you can actually there's some time you can actually sit up a little bit, so it's not
Hmm.
like you're an
Yeah,
arrow
that's good.
the entire way. I think there's like three like climbs that are
Hmm.
one is like maybe 4 minutes, one's like 2 minutes. Like they're not long,
Hmm.
they're not steep, they're like
Okay.
3-4% grade.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I mean, it's a really nice course, and the run course, actually, it's different this year. Last year, we did a 3-loop course. This year, they're doing a 2-loop course, and it's pretty flat. There's a few little uphills, kind of like Oceanside. You've got the little uphills.
Yep.
You move, off the Strand and up. It's kind of similar
Hmm.
to that, but it'll be cooler, right? Like
Hmm. Yeah.
it's almost every race we ever do, the run is hot.
Yeah, that's right.
But this, I mean, I think last year it got to 65 on the run, but
Oh, wow, that's wonderful.
the sun comes out like with it. Usually the marine layer burns off about the time the run starts.
Hmm.
So it might be sunny, but it's not hot.
Hmm. Hmm. Oh, it sounds like a great course.
It really is. In some ways I was having some FOMO today as we're driving out, and actually I got onto the Facebook page and like looking, does anyone need a relay?
Yeah,
Because I
yeah,
got
yeah.
a bike here. I'm like, I'll bike for somebody, no problem. I would love
I
to.
love
I'd
it.
love to go race it. I may have to bandito it.
And it sold out this year. So,
It did sell out. It sold out last year too.
oh wow. Okay.
But it sold out this time, like last week,
Okay.
because I know there were some people that wanted to kind of get in last minute, and they kind of they got shut out. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's a good race, and honestly, the area. I don't know if you've ever been up here, but it's breathtaking.
Yeah. No, I've been near there, but not in that area specifically. But yeah. Oh, that's
Eh,
great. Well, that'll be fun to be coaching and tracking, and you're going to be on your bike, obviously,
Yeah,
getting up and down and cheering people at different places. So, and you've got a good group there.
yeah, it's gonna be super fun. It's gonna
Oh, that's awesome. Well, so then we wanted to talk a little bit about this race, but then we also wanted to talk about how to plan for an international race. So,
yeah,
going over to California is nice because you can drive to that race, but most of our international races, we're jumping on a plane and planning, let alone a race that we're going to be crossing the international date line.
yeah. It's so interesting. The same kind of thing happened with Finland for me. With so many of the people I coach have qualified for the World Championship, and I
Yeah.
think this year, I think it's 6.
Oh, that's awesome.
Pretty much everybody that I coach that wanted to. Oh, there's one exception,
Yeah.
but has qualified for New Zealand,
Yeah.
and so now they're asking me questions,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
and obviously I'm going now, and you're going,
Yeah.
and so we're right now in the beginning of like planning our trip and working on the logistics, and it's a challenge.
It
it,
is.
it is an it is an absolute challenge to travel around the world for one,
Mm-hmm.
with your bike and with triathlon in mind, but also many of these people are traveling with their families,
Yeah.
and trying to like figure out the logistics of having their family there, and what to do and how to figure these things out. Like number one question, like, should I go with a tour company or should I go independent?
Yeah.
And I guess maybe that's our first kind of stop.
Mhm.
So I've never went with a tour company before, and I've traveled internationally many times,
Right.
but you've done it with a tour company a few times. So
Yeah.
can you tell us about that experience and what that's
Yeah.
like?
So we've used a company in the past. The first time we did Zell MC, we used a company, and it ended up being a very convenient and enjoyable experience because a group of us all used the same company. I guess I can give him a plug, Endurance Travel with Ken Glaub. And Ken Glaub was one of those, pro triathletes back in the day when I was racing. I was not a professional at that time, but he was, and he was the beast from the East. And so neat that he's created this travel company. And we traveled with him, and it was really a neat experience. One, because we were in Austria, and we were staying with a group at the same hotel, and the food was amazing. Everything was taken care of. The transportation was all provided. We did not need to rent a car. And he had bike mechanic all set. Race day logistics was all taken care of, both with dropping off and picking up. So there's a really a lot of concierge service that was built into this, and we've used him. We had him set up to use for Finland, and we used him for at least one other race at this point. And so we're using him for New Zealand as well. And it ended up, on one hand, taking a lot of the logistic planning out of the equation. And so there's a convenience to it, and sort of that concierge service, it is certainly helpful.
Okay. Um, so I have to ask, like, is the convenience worth, because the big thing is the cost, right?
Yeah,
So you go with a company like this, there's obviously a premium
right.
as far as the cost. So obviously you feel like it's worth it
Oh yeah, yeah.
for,
And actually, I'm surprised that he's not charging more. I don't mind sharing the price. We're paying 2,800 for the two of us for 6 nights, and all the services that go along with that. And when I heard the price, I was like, wow, that's actually pretty good, because when we were pricing out stays, Airbnb, Vrbo, we were looking at all different options. We were coming up with places that you could stay at, but you would need a group to make it reasonably priced. We could find a place that is $1,000 a night, which is only going to make sense if you've got multiple people staying with you. And then trying to price out renting a car and all that. It adds up. It's
so was that including transportation from Auckland?
yes, yeah, to and
Okay.
from Auckland,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, or from,
And
yeah.
all your meals?
Not all the meals. Yeah, some of
Majority?
the meals, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. Interesting. See, I've never done it to a
yeah.
company. I always eat myself, and it's a lot of stress,
It
but in some ways it's kind of fun too.
I know, and I like that sort of exploring. In fact, the plan B was to get a camper van. I think you were talking about that too. And I
Oh,
was
I'm
actually
still doing
searching
it.
for places where I would camp out in Topah. And there's a lot of places you can camp out, and I was prepared to do that if this didn't come through.
So I'm getting a camper van, but not for, like, I'm getting it and I'm gonna drive it to
Yeah,
Topo, but
awesome.
then I'm staying at an Airbnb, but then I'm gonna travel around
Yeah, yeah,
afterwards with it.
yeah, yeah. And we're
So
gonna
it's kind
do
of a, yeah. Go ahead, Sir John.
no,
John, go
we're
ahead.
we're gonna travel afterwards too, but not in a camper van. Although that is what I would prefer, but not the wife.
I'm gonna live the dream. I'm gonna be like, I gotta have my bike
uh,
in the camper van, and
yeah,
I'm just gonna, like, oh, this looks like it might be a fun place to go ride, and I'm gonna, or go for a hike or whatever. And I'm just
yeah,
gonna drive, and
I love
because
it.
the culture there is to do that, and
Yep,
it's
that's right.
summertime. It's like summer vacation there, and yeah, I really, I'm kind of almost want to go in with no plan
Yeah, yeah, right, right.
and just wherever the road takes me,
Enjoy it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I love
Exactly.
it. I
So
think that's great. Yeah.
so let's start thinking about or talking about how you decide on like flights
Hmm.
and that kind of stuff. So have you booked your flights, and like how do you go about doing that and deciding like that
So
side of
for
things?
this race, knowing Topol is restricted in how many, places to stay at, our first order of business was to get lodging. And once
Yeah.
we were able to secure lodging, now we can work backwards and do flights. And in this case, and I don't know if you found the same thing, even with the Airbnb there, there's a minimum night stay of from 7 to 10 days that I was coming across. And so that was just one of those pieces that you have to understand where you're traveling. You've got to figure out what the lodging is and what the restrictions are there. And so now we're in the process of securing flights to get to Auckland on the right day to be able to then get transport back over to Topol.
Okay. Yeah, it is tough though, right? Like, because can you, I don't think you can actually fly to Topo with your bike either, right? Is that,
No, I think that Topol seems like a St. George type airport. It's very small, and so Auckland's the main one to go to, but that's the next piece is how are you going to get your bike there? So what are you
yeah.
doing for your bike?
Yeah. So I haven't booked yet, but I'm gonna bring my own bike.
Mm-hmm.
I know, like, there used to be tri-bike transport. That's not a
Yeah,
thing
no,
anymore.
that's right.
So I think that actually threw a big monkey wrench for a lot of people
Yeah.
that historically have just counted on tri-bike transport.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've traveled with my bike many times. So I'm gonna, pack it up and do it, right? Like now, I don't know, because I know some airlines you have to go, ahead of time and tell them that you have a bike.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know, but I'm looking at Air New Zealand. I'm sure most people would
Mm-hmm.
be, but you have to be careful, right? Because if
Yeah.
everyone is flying Air New Zealand from LA to
Mm-hmm.
Auckland, their bike capacity
Yeah.
might be limited.
Mm-hmm.
And so you definitely want to put up in your reservation that you're traveling with a bike. Um, because you don't want to get there or not have your bike,
No.
as you've done before. And then coming home, same thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
I know in Finland, people coming home with their bikes, it was a big problem.
That was a big
Um,
problem. Yeah.
it's something to think about. I've also talked to people that were considering even FedExing their bike,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
putting the bike box and FedExing it right to their hotel.
Yeah.
It's pretty expensive, but it's
It
probably
is.
not a whole lot more than tri-bike transport, except for you
There's
got to put your bike together
yeah, and
and
there's
and,
there's
and take it
um
up.
Bike Flights is a company that does that. And I'm looking at them. But wait, let's back up and talk a little bit about how you found a lodging there and
Oh,
what hurdles you came up upon that you had to get over.
well, the first hurdle is we were relatively late to qualify.
Yeah.
The first time we were going to go to New Zealand in 2019, I qualified super early.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually got this great Airbnb. It was beautiful. It was right exactly where I wanted to stay.
Mm-hmm.
And then COVID happened and we didn't get to
Yeah.
go. This time we qualified relatively late. And so obviously I didn't book before I qualified. I probably should have,
Yeah. Right.
in, in, in retrospect. But so actually, believe it or not, I have two places.
Yeah.
I booked a place in Topo, or Taupo, we gotta figure out how to say this, Topo, but it's not very nice.
Okay.
So it was on Airbnb. It was like it looks like some full like fishing lodge or something like
Oh.
that, or camp. And like three little tiny bedrooms.
Yeah.
It wasn't very expensive. It was super cheap. And I can cancel it up until like the week of the race.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I have that one, but then a person that we normally travel with, she actually found a place about 20-minute drive away.
Mm-hmm.
That's really nice.
Okay.
So three of us are gonna. The plan A is that, but I'm keeping my plan B
Mm-hmm.
because you never know.
Yeah.
5 weeks out, they decide to cancel on you.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Or maybe I have somebody else that really needs a spot, and they're like, "Oh, we can transfer this Airbnb for
Mm-hmm.
you." Um, so I kind of feel a little bit guilty that I'm holding this guy's place, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but about 5 weeks out, I'll let it go. And then I'll also you message them, hey, like you could charge a lot more than you're
Yeah, yeah,
charging because
yeah,
there'll be nothing, basically nothing left in this town.
right.
I do find it interesting that, I know kind of the thought process a little bit by Ironman going to these smaller places, but Lati was the same way. There just
Yeah,
wasn't enough accommodation.
right.
And especially when they switched this to the 2-day race and they have almost 5,000 athletes,
That's a lot.
it's a
Hmm.
lot.
Yeah,
When we did our first travel race to a 70.3 Worlds, it was in Mont Tremblant. So it's a ski town that's like a resort, and they had tons of places to
yeah,
stay.
that's right, right, right.
They only had 2,500 people in the race because it was a 1-day race,
Hmm.
right? So you double that number. And I know people deal with this at Kona all the time, but you double that number, you take it to 5,000
Yeah,
racers
yeah,
in these small towns. I think it makes it really, really difficult for people.
yeah. No,
So
totally. And it is something that they've got to figure out because it's nice to go to a small area because the way you can lay out the route is a little better. You have a little bit more freedom with road access, but trying to accommodate a large number of athletes, international athletes, it's tough on these small towns. So,
and I'm gonna make another complaint just because it's you and I.
mm,
But I also think that the company Nirvana, who's partnered with Ironman, they know ahead of time and they booked out almost all
yeah,
the hotels.
right, right.
And to me, like that's such a scam
Hmm.
that the average person kind of gets, I don't know, the raw end of
Yeah,
the deal there, because you look at Nirvana, they still have rooms,
right.
but they're really,
They're
really
pricey.
expensive,
Yeah, they're pricey. We
right?
looked at them as well, and it was just it was really cost prohibitive.
Right, but they booked up everything,
Hmm.
and they even bought up, from my understanding, of all the air or a bunch of the Airbnbs.
Yeah, okay.
And so, when a company can go in and buy up all the Airbnbs and
Hmm.
all the hotels, and they're affiliated with Ironman, I
Yeah.
mean, it's kind of leaves a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth, to be honest with
Hmm.
you.
Hmm.
Especially for someone like me that likes to, kind of do it by themselves.
Yeah, when the cost is that high,
Yeah,
I think I think I'm surprised that Ironman hasn't done that sooner, where they've offered more lodging as a package deal. So we'll see what happens because now one of the competitors is doing that here in Las Vegas, where PT or
yeah.
yeah, PTO, the what T100 is doing a package deal at the hotel and race entry. So it'll be
But it was
interesting
only
to see.
one. But it was only one hotel,
There is only one hotel, right?
right? So it was, but no, it was only one hotel. It was at just at the Westin.
Hmm.
Like I've booked already at the Hilton
Yeah,
across,
yeah.
just across, and then within a 10-minute drive, you've got a lot of hotels,
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
right? So like I see what I kind of like the idea of doing it together, like it's for people, like logistically, but I just think it's when you buy up all the hotels,
Hmm.
and then everyone's scrambling and you kind of are
Yeah.
left, well, I got to go with Nirvana or whatever company. I
Corner
don't
the
know,
market too much.
corner the market too much. Yeah.
Okay, so we got lodging down. It's not easy. Transportation, you're renting a camper van, or we will ultimately rent a car as well because we're going to do sightseeing after the race, and we've got family coming over afterwards. So
So
we're gonna,
let's talk about the cars though, because I'm planning on a camper van, and this will be the first time I've ever did that.
yeah,
But when you're traveling with your bike, that creates a big logistic hurdle, especially internationally,
yeah,
because big SUVs are not the norm.
no,
Like, it's pretty easy in North America. You're going to go to a race. Okay, I'll just rent an SUV. It's a little
hmm,
bit of an upcharge, but many of these places you can't get them.
no, that's right.
I know, like in Finland, people had a really hard time.
And you don't want them.
Well, they're really difficult to get around. So
Yeah,
historically, what I've done when I go to Europe is I rent a station wagon,
hmm,
and so you can fit your bike in the back.
yep,
But it's something that you really do have to think about if you're traveling with your bike. Um, you may not, especially if you bring your family, you want to, how are you going to fit, like, maybe your spouse and kids
right,
and your bike all in a vehicle?
hmm,
It's not that easy.
hmm,
And something that, once again, you have to plan. plan out ahead of time,
Yeah.
especially when you have to drive. Because like I'm assuming you could take a bus or there's other ways to
Mhm.
get from Auckland, but you really do need to think about that. And like I said, people in Finland had that issue
Mhm.
um, for sure.
Yeah, we did look at alternative transportation from Auckland to Topol from, if we didn't go with the package deal, and you can take a bus.
Yeah,
Whether or not you can get your bike on the bus, again, these are buses that are not necessarily looking to transport a lot of bikes.
yeah.
And so that is an issue. But this, I did look for places to rent a bike as opposed to taking my bike. And unfortunately, I could not find anywhere right now to rent from because it's hard. But what I'm going to do after the race, the plan is if I do take my bike, I'm either going to try to store it in Auckland or I'll try to ship it from Topol back to the States at that point. But these are costly options. It's not easy. And that's why if I can find a place that rents a bike, I think I'd be okay on a rental bike for one race. But it's a 70.3 World Championship. I also don't want to be riding a fat tire, beach cruiser. So,
If you do it on a Fat Tire Beach Cruiser, it might move up to legendary status though.
all right, that's right.
But I'm with you too. Like, I don't think that'd be enjoyable for you. Like,
No,
you know what I mean? Like, even just even I don't know, like you might be able to get a gravel bike or something
yeah,
like.
right, right.
It probably wouldn't be that much fun for you because it's
No,
like part
right.
of the fun is to race,
That's right,
right?
right.
Like, and you want to feel like you're actually racing. No,
Hmm.
I understand that.
So with your camper van, make sure that it's a certified self-contained camper van. Because
Yes,
then that opens up where you can park. I did find that out. So, or where you
yes.
can camp.
And actually, I found some. Like, my plan is to be there for 3 weeks, about $1,000 a week.
Yeah, they're not that expensive because this is what New Zealanders do. They jump in the
Exactly.
camper van, they rent it, or they rent theirs out. And so there's a lot of options to get something that you can travel around on.
And just renting a car was about 1,200 for the time versus 3,000 for the camper van.
Hmm.
But I'll be able to stay in it,
Yeah, yeah,
like, and I'll for sure be able to take my bike
yeah,
because there's room.
right.
So,
So let's even back up. When did you check your passport?
oh, that's a great question. So now, I know my passport's good because
Yeah.
it's been 4 years. But I now have I think America's had it for a long time. Canada just switched to having 10-year passports.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So I have a 10-year passport.
Okay.
And
Good.
then the other one I got, this gets deep, but I also had to check my green card.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I'm on a green card.
Hmm.
So fortunately I think I got 6 years or 7 years left on that one too.
Okay.
But no, those are things like
You got 'em.
you got to know, right? It's amazing like how many people actually don't even have a passport.
Yeah, right. Hmm.
And obviously that's number one. You got to make sure you can travel. And
Hmm.
then the other one is interesting too. And many people may or may not know this, but you can be denied entry
Hmm.
even with a passport if you have a criminal conviction.
Mm. Hmm.
Like I for sure know going into Canada, if you have a criminal conviction in the United States, they can deny you entry, and they do it all the time.
Mm.
So just something to think about, like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to New Zealand. You want to check first,
Hmm.
especially if you don't have a clean background.
Yeah.
Now, all
No,
of us
I agree.
triathletes, we have clean backgrounds, but you
Yeah,
never
yeah.
know.
All right. Hey, you never know. But I check my passport, because we obviously both you and I we do a lot of travel, so I have that, I'm always able to see where I'm at with the passport. But I had to renew this year,
Oh
and
yeah.
I had to wait to March to be able to submit the renewal because there's a time window that you can put it in.
Yeah.
And you hear these horror stories of things taking a long time, and I'm like, boy, I hope there isn't going to be a problem with getting the passport back in time. Obviously, December was a long ways off, but still, you hear these stories of 6 months, but fortunately, I got it back in like 4 weeks and got the
That's
update.
pretty good.
So,
Okay, so the other thing I'm considering, and I haven't booked my flights yet, but I'm
hmm.
considering is actually going through Hawaii
Yeah, yeah,
and
right.
spending maybe 2 or 3 days in Hawaii on the
Right.
way down, and then 2 or 3 days on the way back.
We've talked about that as well. Yeah.
I'm thinking for a few reasons. Number one, going to be really hot in New Zealand for this race,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and we're going to be relatively cold. So
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking
Mm-hmm.
maybe I get a little heat
Oh,
acclimatization
there
in
you go.
Hawaii.
Yeah.
Spend 3 days there,
Yeah.
hanging out outside, running on the
Yeah.
running there, and
Yeah.
the only thing would be like, would I take my bike, and like take it all apart, or
Yeah.
take it, build it, pack it, repack it? I don't know. That's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot,
Yeah.
but I'm considering it, and it's actually financially not a bad deal because you can get to Hawaii on Southwest,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and it's not too expensive, and then the flights were definitely cheaper from Hawaii to Auckland.
Okay. Well,
So
we've toyed around with that idea. We haven't obviously settled on anything yet, but that does look like an interesting option because Hawaii is almost on the way.
yeah,
It's just got to veer off a little bit to the north, and then it's amazing how south New Zealand is. I always get
really
blown away
south.
every time I look at a globe.
Well, the
Um,
other thing is how far it is away from Australia. It's a 3.5 hour flight from
yeah,
Australia to
yeah,
get there. That's like, almost us flying across the
yeah.
country.
I grew
Um,
up on the board game Risk, and that just sort of has tainted my brain the way that the world is shaped. So,
there you go. So I will tell you this. We did the first time we went, I've been to Australia 3 times. And the first time Marie and I went to Australia, we flew through Hawaii,
hmm.
and because it was significantly cheaper.
Okay.
But man, what a mistake that was.
Oh, really?
Just you're so tired.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because I think we had like 5 hours
Oh,
layover,
yeah. That's not enough.
and
Hmm.
it wasn't enough, and there was nowhere to like lay down. Like we
Yeah.
got kicked out of this one part of
Oh,
the show
yeah,
where we're like
yeah,
finally found a quiet place, and some of that kicked us out. And then they have the announcements going over and over again,
yeah.
and there's just nowhere comfortable to be. And yeah,
Hmm.
it was a just not long enough. If it would have been 6 or 7 hours, I would have just got a hotel.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Right,
kind of
right.
that time, it was just not quite enough.
No, that's right.
And man, that made for miserable experience.
Well, and this is something that we really try to pay attention to when we are booking flights. If we can fly direct, we do that. Or if we have a plan, layover, something like what we're talking about with Hawaii, we really try to fly. We may pay a little bit more for a direct flight versus one that has multiple stops, possible delays, missing baggage has to get transferred, especially when traveling for a race. We really try to be careful with the flights that we are picking.
The other one I was trying to toy around with was actually going through Tahiti,
Oh yeah. Oh, interesting. Yeah.
because I've been to Hawaii. I've never been to
Yeah.
Tahiti.
No, that's right.
And I'm still, it's in the back of my mind if I could figure out maybe that one. So
Well,
if you're going,
I love it. We're going to try to go to the South Island and fly back from Queenstown as
okay,
opposed to going back up to Auckland.
interesting. Okay. And
Yeah.
well, then you'd have to stop somewhere along the way for sure, right?
What's that?
From Queenstown, you'd have to stop where, like in Auckland and then go,
That's a good question. It may go through Auckland. I'm not sure. Yeah, but
or
we're
maybe you're going to go through Australia and back.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. Oh gosh, that'd be a killer.
Um, no, but these are like this to me. This is the fun part,
Yeah, it
and
is.
we haven't even started talking about driving on the wrong side of the road,
Mm-hmm. No, that's right.
because that's the other thing you got to be prepared for is
Mm-hmm.
you're going to rent a car in New Zealand. You have to drive on the other side of the road.
Yeah.
There's one other thing about New Zealand that I think is interesting, and I got to do more research on this. But for like your credit card and um, insurance on a rental car,
Mm-hmm.
there's a few countries that basically it doesn't count for,
Yeah,
and
you got to really watch this. Yeah.
New Zealand is one of them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you probably want to, if you are thinking about renting a car, you have to think about like the New Zealand insurance,
Yeah.
and
Right.
potentially even talking to your home insurance, because your credit card is not going to
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to cover you. And New Zealand is one of those countries,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
I don't
It's tough, and so you do need to pay attention to that because that is an added cost, and that's something that we're looking at as we're exploring rental cars. And yes, driving on the other side of the road, uh, boy, I tell you, it's it's hairy, and I think the worst time that I had was when I finally felt I was comfortable.
Oh,
And
that's the scary part though.
right, and then when I was comfortable, I was starting to pull out after filling up with gas and looking the wrong way.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, you gotta be on your toes the whole time because you're never gonna be comfortable when you drive for just a short period, even 3 weeks, whatever you're doing, you'll still be,
Plus, you're going to be riding your bike on the wrong side.
yeah, that's right, yeah.
So if
Mm-hmm.
you're planning to do a little riding there beforehand or after, like
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of scary to be on
Yeah.
the wrong side of the road. You're definitely not used to that.
The driving on the other side of the road and going through traffic circles.
Yes.
That is that was probably the scariest I've ever been had a feeling in my life. So
Yeah. The other one when you do it, most of the cars there are stick shifts as well.
yeah, that's right, right.
And so now you're dealing with a
Hmm.
clutch and
Hmm.
a gear shift on the wrong side as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So I mean, it's a super big challenge. Like this is
But see,
recent grade stuff in motor learning, right?
I'm trying to avoid saying the wrong side because it's just not our side. It's
No, it's the wrong side.
yeah.
It's absolutely the wrong side.
So I can't remember when I raced New Zealand if the aid stations was a left handoff for aid or right handoff.
It's got to be a left because
I
you're riding on that side. You're riding on the other side.
I'm I'm not sure. Yeah, well this will be something that we'll double check on. But you're right.
In
I think.
Australia, it was definitely on the left when we raced
Oh
there.
yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So you got to be prepared for a left-hand pickup on bottles, which is something that we're not used to doing.
Yeah, I almost crashed.
And looking over your right shoulder versus your left shoulder. And again, this is something that, if someone's qualified, this is practice it now because it is different.
Yeah. And it's funny, right? Because we're thinking about this stuff, and we're now we're in May,
Yeah.
so the 5th month of the year. We're talking about December, the 12th month of the year. So we're 7 months away,
Hmm.
and we're already like logistically like coming up to some issues,
Yeah.
and it's still. I mean, it's a long way away, but it'll be here before we know it.
It-
That's for sure.
well, and it is. And, if someone's shipping their bike, it's going to be here even sooner because
Yeah.
shipping your bike, you typically have to ship your bike maybe a month before the event.
Yeah.
So it does get there. And so, I'm already thinking about supplies. What do I need to replace by the time, December rolls around? It's the end of our season.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's the time to start looking at, upgrading gear or changing gear, replacing gear. And we've got to do that all ahead of time. So,
So what we probably need to do, John, is we're going to reach out to all our listeners here. If anybody works for FedEx or UPS,
yeah,
or you got a nice corporate account with a big discount, because I know a
that's
lot of
right.
corporations do, let us know because we would love to FedEx our bikes to and from New Zealand. So just throwing it out there if anyone's got a hookup like that.
We have at least, I think, 10 athletes locally that have qualified.
Oh, I think it's more than that.
Yeah,
I think it might be up to 15.
you're right because we qualified 8 at St. George.
Right. And at Oceanside was 2,
Hmm.
or was it 3? Maybe 3 at Oceanside.
Okay,
And then I know people that in the club that qualified even in the fall.
earlier. Okay, yeah, that's
So
great.
yeah, it's going to be quite a number, and a few are still trying to get spots.
Yep.
The last few races here, so you know, I think we're going to have maybe between 15 and 20 people from just the Las Vegas Triathlon Club,
That's
which is
great. Our
awesome.
club, in St. George, we were fourth place as a club, and we had 20 athletes who were signed up under the LVTC banner. There are obviously a lot more local athletes racing, but only those 20 count towards points. We came in fourth place out of 152 clubs.
Yeah,
And
impressive.
there's different divisions of clubs based upon how many affiliate members you have. And we're in the smallest division. I think we're smallest division. And we're competing against, corporate clubs and national, international clubs. And our club came in fourth. So I thought that was pretty cool.
I think at New Zealand, if there's a club award, we might other than the corporate clubs, we might be one of the biggest for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Probably out of New Zealand will be the outside of New
yeah.
Zealand will be
Right,
the,
right, right, right. Yeah.
that'll be
No,
cool.
that's special. And we do have a Discord channel for the club. If you can find our Facebook page, you can find our Discord channel, and we have a World Championship channel.
Even if you're not in the club and you want to jump on that, if you're
Yeah,
listening to the podcast, and we're going to be basically talking New Zealand on the Discord, so that'd be great.
yeah. Maybe we can get a local New Zealander on our channel, and we can
Oh yeah, that's a great idea.
yeah, do a Q&A that way. That'd be cool.
All right, John. Hey, I'm gonna let you go.
Yeah,
That was great talk tonight. Good luck to everyone racing at Morro Bay.
yeah.
Is there any races this weekend? Is it Chattanooga this weekend, or was that last week?
Chattanooga, and I know we have our local pro athlete Justin Raleigh is out in Chattanooga. I do believe
Yep,
he's racing.
yep, yep. And I think there's maybe one or two other people from the club that are at Chattanooga.
Okay,
So that'll be good. And yeah, in Morro Bay, and then got a few more chances to qualify.
awesome. Well, enjoy your time there.
Thank you, John. Have a great weekend.
All right, talk soon.